It's great to be with you again this morning. Last time I was here, I spoke, I think before the dinner last year. One of the things that we talked about as a board is, what is most important for this conference? What should be some of the things that are being discussed? And I think for me and for Jerry and for Craig, one of the topics that we'd like to really set as a foundational topic for today as you get into the rest of the speakers and as you get into the breakout sessions this afternoon is really understanding why some companies and organizations grow stronger as kind of a theme. And I spent some time thinking about that and thought I could bring today a little perspective on that, I spent 21 years at Douglas Aircraft. When it merged with Boeing, I then left for Cessna and spent quite some time there. But one of the takeaways that I had from a leadership perspective was that all of those companies and other peer companies that we competed against, and especially Redbird, and more importantly, bringing this home to all of you here with your companies, is that all of those companies that grew stronger had a couple things in common. And those things that were in common was they all embraced change. That was critically important to any of those companies. And embracing change, they knew that they had to take some risks, that was going to be part of the equation to understand change, take the risks associated with that change. And it's been fascinating evolution over the aviation years to see where that has in fact played out in many, many ways. I go back to my early career looking at the big discussion around, do we move from, now there's some of you in the room, I can see age-wise, that won't even understand this concept, moving from drafting vellums to moving to a CAD system. And enormous debates internally where you're discussing, do I make that investment in technology or not? What's the real payback? Guy I work with, great guy, Fred Stevens, he would flat tell me he could make a drawing faster on a vellum than any young kid out of school could on a computer. And in fact, he probably could. But what he didn't realize in the change quotient was that they weren't teaching how to do it in vellums in school anymore, and that if you didn't embrace this change, you were going to get left behind. And you didn't see the larger, more comprehensive aspect of how bills of material now are going to be automated. It helped the supply chain. It created productivity. It created much more efficiency and a much more integrated system. But the other piece of that, besides embracing change and taking risks, was really some of the great companies also taking a leadership position in their industries to drive that change. And I'll use an example a little bit later as to where that was very, very, very true for Cessna Aircraft Company. And the reason I feel it's so important as far as the leadership piece of it, which again is why you're here in some of the discussions we'll have this afternoon, is there's the old saying that if you are not the lead dog, the scenery never changes. But really the key to that is, more importantly, that if you are the lead dog, you're really setting not only the pace but the direction as to where that industry or the industry that you're in can go. And that is the whole piece of the leadership element that's so important. I'm hopeful that being here at Migration, that it's really going to open up your thinking over this next day and a half, and that we might be able to explore and walk away with a definition of what really is a success model. What is the model that you can take away based on what you'll be hearing that can help drive and determine success for our industry, our training industry. Now, that's going to happen through change, taking some risks, and probably the most important piece will be around embracing the technologies that you're going to be exposed to and introduced to throughout today and tomorrow, and understanding how that can fit into your businesses and where we can take that. I truly believe that change can create a meaningful difference in how we train, but more importantly, it's all about getting results. And it's the results that we can achieve with taking the changes, the technologies, and embracing it, and reaching out to a much, much broader audience that we can attract into the training industry. Because the way we're doing it today, while it's been effective if you look at outcomes and results, it isn't going to support the generational issues that we have going forward. And I'll touch on that a little bit later when I talk about the challenges that EA has. So for me personally, I'm excited that you're here, personally excited that you're going to learn and see some of the opportunities for this technology, some of the change that may be required. And again, I hope that we're all going to walk away taking a leadership position in the industry to, in fact, make some of this happen. Let me change topics and share briefly about why is EA here. We have a few members from EA that are here in attendance. Dave Chameson, who's our Vice President of Business Development and Marketing, who understands the need to really have a face to the industry that's different than what we've had in the past from a marketing standpoint. Hal Bryan, who is a former Microsoft flight simulator employee who is working for EA, dealing with our social media and our methods of creating engagement through all of what is now the fashionable methods of getting into people's homes, into their daily lives. You know, I don't know what I would do without this. How do we, 51 weeks a year, besides the 1 week that we're at Oshkosh, touch people with knowledge and information that will get them passionate about aviation? And one of the speakers this afternoon is a board member from EA, which is Joe Brown, and he'll share some activities that we're looking at EA as far as moving forward. So as a board, why are we here? Why is EA here at this particular migration? What's important to us? We have taken on an imperative that we need to be the leaders in aviation in growing participation, that there's no other organization out there today that can cast a net like EA does, because we're not just Hill focused on whether it be GAMA, who's representing the manufacturers' rights on the Hill, whether it be NBAA with a professional pilot and flight departments, AOPA, if you have a pilot's license or an airplane, you need to be a member because they're fighting for you every day. But we have this unique event once a year for 1 week that embraces every piece of aviation across the entire spectrum. But we need to embrace it 52 weeks a year, not just that 1 week. So we're taking on an imperative that we are going to grow aviation. And we recognize that in order to do that it's going to be a journey. It's certainly not going to be a sprint. We don't have all of the answers or solutions at hand. It's going to take some time. It's a complicated puzzle. There's lots of pieces to what is it that's going to grow aviation and make it stronger. But we think we're equipped to do that. And part of the way that we're equipped is because we have, again, this network of participants, whether it be through our exhibitors, our members, or anyone in the aviation community that is involved with EA on an annual basis. Probably one of our biggest hurdles is, again, we have to knock down the perception and hurdles that we collectively have created. And this will be my one minute of soapbox that just drives me absolutely crazy. All of us are here in this room that love aviation. I mean, that we've either made a living at it, we participate in it, my personal recreation life is associated with it. I don't know what I would do without it. But we are the worst marketers, and we are absolutely the worst proponents of sharing that excitement with anybody. And what got me fired up about this is a couple days ago when I was thinking about what I was going to talk about while being here. Social media, it's a great way to create engagement. And now we've got these ads that blip up on your Facebook page and things you can't control. Somebody's profiled me as being an aviation geek, and up pops this opportunity to buy all of these different wonderful t-shirts. First one that pops up, it's called Forces of Flight. And it's got an airplane, and it's got the normal lift, thrust, drag vectors. Lift is dreams, thrust was money, drag was FAA, and gravity was reality. Now, I don't know about you, but from a marketing standpoint of trying to get people excited about aviation and into learning how to fly and training, I don't know what could be a worse example of trying to paint the picture of what's important for us in aviation. I personally think that the vectors should be changed. Lift being dreams is fantastic. Thrust really needs to be technology. It's not about money. It's about the technologies that we're deploying, whether it be through the Red Hawk, which is the ability to offer a lower cost training point and training platform with that diesel propulsion system, to the Redbird simulators themselves that create a training process that is more efficient and more cost effective. I view it as technology as the driver of that. Drag is not the FAA. The FAA is not going away. It'd be no different than if I was into hot rodders and I had my hot rod 32 Chevy picture on the front of my t-shirt, and on the back it said, "I hate the Department of Motor Vehicles." That doesn't do anything for you. They're there, you're going to have to live with them. The real issue regarding drag is our ability to change the regulatory environment to allow us to use simulation to a higher level than what we've used in the past, which we're going to discuss, I think, later throughout the conference. The ability to create the environment that gets rid of some of the parasite drag that's the hassle that you go through in getting through the training environment. And as far as gravity, Reality may be the right choice, but I really think that the gravity piece of it is creating the ability for you to either recreate in your airplane, or to provide transportation in your airplane, be able to provide commerce, or to just flat ass have fun, which is a big part of what aviation is all about. So we have a hurdle that's in front of us, and it's ourself that we have to work to get through. And so I'm done with that. If we had Q&A, there's probably other soapboxes that you could get me on, but I'll stop on that one. One of the other key pieces as I go into why EA is here and what EA's involvement is we have taken, and I think Joe's going to talk a little bit about it later today, part of this imperative about growing aviation. We think in this very complicated puzzle of all the various pieces of how you do that is that training and skills development is critical. That's something that we have as an association somewhat ignored. We've supported it from a safety standpoint and from trying to make sure we do the right thing with our membership, especially with our experimental builders. But we think that not only creating pilots, but also nurturing them and keeping them safe by putting the underpinning of the proper training environment systems is going to be, for us, a big piece of what we do going forward. On average, if you listen to most of our members, they're flying 50 to 75 hours a year. That's kind of the typical normal amount of annual flying that a recreational pilot does. When I learned to fly, my dad was a pilot, my mother was a pilot. His words of wisdom to me was, if you aren't going to be able to fly 50 hours a year, you ought to not fly because you aren't going to be safe. And it wasn't a negative saying step out of flying, but get serious. And here we are sitting in a place that has the ability for us to fly a lot more than 50 hours a year. It may not be in the air, but it's certainly going to be an environment that allows you to keep your skills and your proficiency and your ability at the peak of its game. I think all the time of I'm what I call a seasonal flyer, and it's not based on hours. It's what I do each season is different. So during the summer, I do a lot of low VFR. I have a Stearman, I have a Ryan PT-22. It's nothing but fun VFR flying with a lot of wind in your face. The rest of the year, and even during some of that seasonal period of time, I fly for business. I fly myself from a transportation standpoint where I really need to be on my game, and I need to make sure that my skills are sharp, that I'm IFR capable, and that I'm doing that. I could be, as I get into some of these certain seasons, be doing a lot more of that through the use of your facilities and Redbird training devices to be able to stay that sharp and do it cost effectively. And it's hours in the seat, whether it's loggable or not is really irrelevant. It's about staying safe. So we are focused to start venturing into that area and helping you. And that brings me to the conclusion of, again, why we're here. Jerry and Craig cornered me, I think it was in about October of last year. We were at a Gamma event on a panel together. And this is one of these, if you guys know Jerry and Craig, it's one of these moments here. I'm walking through the lobby of a hotel, and you get two guys there with a briefcase, and they say, "Jack, I need to talk to you." And you're like, "Oh boy, what's this about? If you got a minute, come over here and we'll sit in these chairs." They were nervous. They had this idea for this the Challenge Cup, and it was a vision that they had, and I think they were beta testing it on me to see whether this idea had any ability to stick or whether it made any sense. Ultimately wanting to know if I wanted to help support and get involved. They were halfway through the presentation of the concept of what they were trying to launch at Sun and Fun. And I think I stopped them in the middle and said, "I'm in. I'm all in at EA. Matter of fact, as you're explaining some of this, we can give you a stage to do the final championship on. We can provide whatever you need to make this happen." And without getting into explaining to them why I was there, was really about, again, going back to, if we're going to grow our industry, if we're going to grow participation, we have to find new and novel ways to do that. And our audience no longer is the industry talking to ourselves. I mean, the demographics of an AirVenture crowd is 90% white male, white hair, old, probably not in the best shape either, some disposable income, which is good for all of you, but that demographic has a shelf life on it that we have to change. So this Challenge Cup provided in my mind from a vision standpoint was a way to, and I know we've just done year one, to get out and get into the basements, the homes, the people that are hanging out at the airports, the young kids. You saw one that wasn't even a pilot, to introduce them to aviation through exciting new technologies that they're dealing with in their day-to-day life that they take for granted and what seems to be relatively new to us in aviation. So we jumped on it. We recognized that this was year one. We really want to make sure that we embrace the ability to also touch more youth with this type of challenge and competition. And I was talking to some of my colleagues today about it was all about the competition. We were flying some of the simulators last night, and it's like, how do we get this networked out to our community so that people can understand how they are doing from a proficiency standpoint against their peers? So we're continuing to be all in again. We're going to continue to help frame and shape, and this is where we really need your help. When you look at when I hear Craig talk, there's 1,000 simulators that are out there today in the United States. It's perplexing to me as to why there aren't thousands of people participating in the Challenge Cup, and that they understand and feel that coming to AirVenture, which is really our one U.S.-based aviation event that's unparalleled. It's kind of the Farnborough Paris on steroids, but strictly domestically, as to why we aren't having that level of participation. And I think there's a catalyst there to make that happen. But we're going to certainly need all of your help to figure out how do we get those people involved using some of your products. We've recognized that at EAA, and I talk about our history of being founded way back when on the experimental home built movement, but we have now created various communities. EAA is really about communities, and we have the warbird community, we have the aerobatic community, the vintage community, the home built community. One of the communities that we want to expand into is the simulation and training community. We don't want to run it or be a part of it, or it's not a revenue chain, but how do we tap into that and create that community for the aviation industry housed within the EA 1 week a year umbrella at AirVenture. And the reason I'm so passionate about the concept of moving to simulation-based communities is that model has been a success model for EAA. This notion of creating people out in their geographic areas that embrace a certain passion around a certain topic is something that creates a pull, and it creates sustainability and excitement throughout the year. And so we think there is a model that we can work with you on. What is that training and simulation and proficiency model that we can roll out through our chapters and through the network that we have? We have over 1,000 chapters and 180,000 members, so there's a lot of feet on the ground of people throughout the country that we can work with. And it's really trying to figure out, and I hope over the course of the next day or so, is also, where do you fit in? Are you going to embrace that kind of model? Are you going to accept the type of change that it takes to create new folks coming into your facilities that want to get involved in things like the Cup, that eventually want to get involved to the point of getting a private, an instrument, and an ATP using your facilities? Looking at organizations that have done wonderful things around embracing change and taking some risks, I certainly can lean on slices of history at Cessna that I can share with you that I think are important in trying to relate to figuring out over the next day and a half as to where are you on that continuum of what you want to do in the way of embracing change. We certainly found that one of the formulas was for any company is really to determining, and many of you have probably read the book True North, and it's around at your company determining really from a values, integrity, process, and focus, what is your true north. For Cessna, it was all about customers. That was our true north. We really embraced the concept that if we really understood the customer experience through the entire life cycle, that would drive and determine what changes we need to make, what risk we were going to be willing to take, and what direction that we would go. And the other thing, it was very simple. Roger White, our head of sales and marketing at the time, in our discussions where we needed something that resonated all the way down to the assembly floor, to people who were actually building these products. And if it was all about the customer, we created it, and you need to have a slogan to rally the troops and get people behind it. But ours was taking care of customers is taking care of business. We didn't want the assembler to necessarily worry about what labor costs were, or what our supply chain lead times were, what our tax basis was. We recognized if they focused on the customer and everything they did was related to that customer, that business would fall in line. The bottom line would, in fact, turn out to be A-OK, and during that slice and sliver of time, it certainly was strong financial performance. So one of the things that was important was recognizing where is change going? Where is the technology evolving? Where are the things that we needed to embrace that would allow us to stay relevant to our customers and on the leading edge of being able to grow and to sustain our business? A couple just quick examples. When Cessna introduced the Citation product line, one of the keys, again foundational to the success of it, was making sure it had a strong safety record. And the piece of the safety record that were important to us was a good product that was well engineered and wasn't too risky, a flight training system that allowed us to ensure that the safety record of Citation jets would be unparalleled, and then a service network that was again underpinning to make sure the airplanes were taken care of so that you didn't have the maintenance issues in that. But the flight training piece was very, very, very important to us. And we won a Collier Trophy years ago around that entire safety record, which we think all of those pieces were completely integrated. So here we are, one piece of it is the service element of it. We established brick and mortar service centers across the country, got those put in place. But our customer model was changing to where they didn't want to come to us. If they had issues, we needed to go to them. And we heard that loud and clear, but weren't quite sure what is the type of change that we need to embrace to go after that. And we introduced what we called our service vehicles, which was taking service to you, which now probably every business jet company that's in business today has replicated what Cessna has done, and we actually call it service in a box, where we could bring it to your hangar and then literally overhaul your airplane, change engines, do whatever it took without you having to move your airplane to our facilities. It was finding out what that change was, embracing it, understanding the risk, which there was some financial risks, and today it's probably one of the highest margin businesses that Cessna has in that service model, and returns the highest customer satisfaction. Some of the other things that would probably stick out in my mind, and some of you can relate to, is the introduction of glass cockpits and single-engine airplanes. Fascinating history on that. There were a lot of studies and reports coming out that were actually saying glass cockpits were not as safe as steam gauges. We were confronted with the opportunity to put the G1000 across our entire product line. At that particular time, I was still running engineering. Kind of was fortuitous. I was running engineering, started the process with no approval to do this without asking or telling anybody. Got promoted, then I had to ask myself for approval to finance it, so it worked out real well. It's kind of like insider trading. But here we really had we had a single engine production line that was doing very well. The flight schools were all asking for steam gauges. We elected to parallel with this technology, and getting our head around embracing that change for that technology shift was really, really tough. We were house divided. We even had, at the time, our network was saying, not sure. So we were building equal amounts of both products, steam gauge and G1000, with feedback saying this could be a long, slow, you may have made the wrong bet here. And it was literally within 18 months after we started full-scale production and deliveries that the market and our customers told us, all we want is the glass cockpits. We don't even want the other models. So those are the type of technology shifts that, while for some, and I use a little bit of the analogous of what we're discussing with some of the technology you're seeing today. For some, we kind of get it and understand it and feel intuitively it's the right way to go. For others who are in the day-to-day and out there faced with what they have in their hand, it's a tough transition. It's tough to kind of cross that bridge and get to where you need to go. That's what, as you leave here, I think you're going to see some of this technology that if you kind of clean sheet it and say, here's my opportunity to do something different, we hope that you'll move in that direction. I mentioned change, risk, and leadership. And there's no probably finer example of leadership. And again, what I hope will come out of this room before the day and a half is over, of what Russ Meyer, who was chairman at Cessna at the time, did with the General Aviation Revitalization Act. We're here as an industry, we're struggling, we had headwinds, single engine production is essentially stopped. And here you had a leadership position of somebody in the industry that said, damn it, I'm gonna find a way to move forward to get what was critically important to getting people into airplanes, learning to fly, moving up the product line, which was to restart the single engine production line, and fought to get tort reform, which there's been no other tort reform legislation that's occurred since GARA, the General Aviation, which was 1996-ish, maybe a little earlier than that. Got that in place that then restarted and rekindled generally the single engine production lines for many, many companies, and is why we're where we are today as an industry in producing airplanes. So that leadership element, again, is going to come out of this room somewhere, I don't know where, to really look at how do we revitalize the training industry. So EAA, talked about some of the things at Cessna. I really feel we're faced with the exact same challenges that you're faced. And probably my best way to capture that position is based on another book that a very good friend of mine wrote, Marshall Goldsmith. And the title of the book is, What Got You Here Won't Get You There. And it's really indicative, I think, of where we are today. All of the things that we have done to get where we are to be here today is not what's going to take us to where we need to be in the future, for a variety of reasons. Technology shifts, demographic shifts, cost shifts, regulatory shifts, that we have to stay ahead of that and figure out what kind of change is it going to take and what level of risk are we willing to take to really be able to create that strength and growth that we wanted at EAA. We believe that one of the ways that at EAA that we're going to look at that is we're going to start modeling the successes that we see that are out there. And I say that because that also plays into some of the workshops that we're going to be going through this afternoon. We have a lot of successes at EAA that need to be replicated, they need to be nurtured, they need to be fed. Our chapter model is very, very strong. 1,000 chapters, some of them are very vibrant, some of them are very lethargic. But we believe that if we can understand what is making those successful, sit down and spend some time and then work with the rest of our chapters to create that level of engagement to model what was the success at the other ones and replicate that, we can really make a huge difference on total engagement. The areas that we're working on doing that is through our social media. And it's one of the reasons we have Hal, who is working. That's the new way to touch audiences. I mean, it's clearly the key. People are not joiners or going to meetings, but you can touch them every day, on their device, every hour. We have done some things in providing information out to them. We believe one of the core elements that we can help in is knowledge and information, and there's lots of ways that we can do that. Right now, we're preaching to ourselves on how to embrace it, and we know that it's going to be very, very hard. But we know that if we get it right, that the outcomes are really what's going to come out of this and create the strength and growth that we all understand we need to do at EA. And at the end of the day, if you really want to reach an 8-year-old, all the way up to somebody even my age, you better have leading edge technology in order to do that. I pride myself in every day getting up, viewing that I have always continued to embrace change. I've looked at role models and mentors of mine and watched people on their career paths that got up every morning and didn't, and watched the world and watched things pass them by, and I certainly never wanted to fall into that mode. And I look at today where we are at EA, and we have to find a way to embrace that change like you're faced with today to be able to get that audience and our future audience that we need to have tomorrow. And why is that? It goes all the way back to that title of that book. because we recognize that what got you here won't get you there, that's really the important thing. So let me leave you with one request. I want you, as you take in this afternoon and then we get into the breakout sessions, I want you to share with us, what does change look like? Help us understand what's going on that you're seeing out in the field and how we may understand the risks, what changes are necessary, and how do we embrace those changes. And then after this migration ends tomorrow afternoon, the last piece of my request is I want all of you to help provide the leadership to actually make it happen so that we will see the difference. So with that, thank you for letting me be here this morning. I think I'm turning it over to Trace.